Welcome back, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to introduce you to Simon Curry, presenting for Energy Estate, the HyNQ Clean Energy Project. Simon is the principal and co-founder of Energy Estate. He is recognised as a leader and pioneer in the transformation of the energy sector and integrating renewables with other industries. He's focused on digitisation of the industry, new and emerging technologies, and the potential for creating jobs and economic growth through this approach. Simon is passionately committed to the transition of energy industry and proud to be one of the leading developers and strategic designers of the renewable energy industrial precincts across Australia. Please welcome Simon Curry from Energy Estate, presenting the HyNQ Clean Energy Project. Welcome, Simon.
Good morning, Nicola. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you very well, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Let me share my screen and I will give everyone an update on HyNQ. That's working okay?
It's just coming through now. One moment. If you go into presentation mode for me, I can see your slides. Perfect. Good to go. Thanks, Simon.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you to the RAM team for the opportunity to present on HyNQ. This is the large integrated project which I will give you a good outline and then talk about the opportunities. Okay, so just in case anyone doesn't know who we are, we're an Australian company. We're very heavily committed to Queensland. We work closely with the Queensland government, in particular Trade and Investment Queensland, and we see that the future for Queensland, that your ability to harness the natural resources, build off the legacy of what you've done in LNG and resources, gives Queensland a almost unique opportunity globally to be part of what will be looked back as one of the largest transformations that we have ever seen. And that is our goals as Energy Estate. So just in terms of a bit of background before I get into HyNQ, we're very focused on the opportunities for the hydrogen economy. So here's some examples of some other things we're doing. The Great Southern Coast, which is all around Portland, like Gladstone, there is an aluminium smelter there, and a forestry industry, and world-class onshore and offshore winds. We're the developers of the Hunter Hydrogen Network, which is a concept of backbone infrastructure through the Hunter Valley, with hydrogen production in the Upper Hunter benefiting from the existing skills base in places like Muswellbrook and Singleton, and then bringing that down through a pipeline to reduce the social impact to the valley in order for Newcastle to become the hydrogen exporter that it wants to be. And just showing that we're not just all about Queensland or Australia. We announced at the beginning of March Hydrogen City Texas. This is a very large project inland South Texas in high wind, great solar, a lot of fracking, poor quality agricultural land, and this is all around storage of green hydrogen in salt caverns, then shipping that out through a pipeline to Corpus Christi, which is one of the top 3 energy ports in the world, and then supplying e-fuels to global markets, including sustainable aviation fuel. So this is something we do at Energy Estate. Our team includes Kevin Peakman, who was one of his overarching message he always gives to us. This is not new. He did his first hydrogen plant, commissioned his first hydrogen plant in '84, built his first one in '88, and this is, again, the message we take to everything we do. This is not new. It may be different than what we've been doing for the last 50 years, but there is a real opportunity, and this is why we are so excited about HyNQ. So what is HyNQ? Once upon a time, it was known as the Abbot Point Clean Energy Hub. We have moved away from that name to effectively call it now the HyNQ, the North Queensland Clean Energy Project. but it still is in the same place. So what it does look to do is it leverages the unique features of Abbot Point, where one of the 4 ports behind the Great Barrier Reef that is effectively available for development. As many of you will have been aware, there's, just like in Gladstone with the special development zone, state development zone, there is a state development zone around Abbot Point in the Bowen, next to Bowen. And our project looks to lever off the availability of land and the good quality renewable resources in that region to build a new, so then leveraging off the existing port facilities. So we're looking at a very large scale wind and solar as the first phase, with then electrolyzers to produce the green hydrogen, and then a green ammonia export project. Energy Estate is the developer, and we will shortly announce partnerships with some exciting global players, which will help put Abbot Point and HyNQ on the map. So why HyNQ where it is? So you've got an existing deep water port. As many of you may recall, back in the heydays of the hopes of the Galilee, there was talk about up to 8 terminals at Abbot Point. There is just the 1 terminal at the moment, but there is obviously room to expand that and have that region become one of Queensland's major bulk exporting ports to the world. It is a NQBP project piece of land in terms of port, and they have been incredibly supportive and cooperative, and understood that over the next decades things will change, but they will be the ones who can really give great benefit to Queensland by allowing their ports to pivot. We've got the state development area, and we've been working, the Queensland government is immensely supportive in the way they deal with the whole coordinated planning process. There are existing road and rail links, so Q-Rail goes through the state development area, so there is potential for domestic demand as from Rocky up to the north. Q-Rail is on diesel, and we've started to see real moves to start to both electrify, but also move to hydrogen fuel cells for particularly passenger transport, as well as looking at longer term, the more heavy haulage. In terms of location, it is not remote. One of the challenges, and it's very relevant for this discussion, is going to be workforce. It's well located in terms of being close to Townsville, but Bowen itself is not a major town. So one of our challenges will be making sure that we do this in a way where we deliver enduring benefits. We've all seen the sugar hits, whether the sugar hits were from LNG or from solar. That's not who we are. We're not perfect, but we really focus on how do you deliver enduring benefits, and have Bowen, when we look back from the future, we look back and effectively say, look at what Bowen's become because of and Proserpine and Collinsville, because of their location close to this fantastic area out at Abbot Point. There is available grid capacity in the area, so there is Strathmore to Bowen is an existing line which can be augmented, but our project, the first phase, is not connecting to the existing grid to effectively export to the grid. All of the wind and solar we're developing will be going into the project. The solar resource is world class, as is everything from there and going inland. It has got very good wind resource, both to running past the Peter Faust Dam and down to Mackay, and you'll have seen there's quite a bit of development in there. Like one of the issues that are going on in Far North Queensland, and one member of our team was actually up with this Far North Queensland Nature Group last week. We have to be very careful around how do we locate the wind in places with the the least biodiversity impact, and particularly on any of the rainforests or other protected vegetation or protected species. The areas that we're looking at for wind are not in forests, and that's again a very important feature of how we go about our development. There is also the ability to one of the features of this project will be a desalination plant. There are obviously many discussions going on between Urana, Burdekin and other irrigation projects. There is quite a lot of development going on, particularly with the fin farming and prawn farming in this area, which has been identified as one of the potential long-term growth, as well as rockets, and that no doubt many of you follow Gilmore Space rockets as closely as we do, and they are looking to be located on the Borrowing Precinct as well. But the freshwater demand is something that we believe we'll be able to help address through looking at the overall infrastructure. In terms of advantages, we've got behind the meter power, flexible delivery via the deep sea port. The behind the meter is going to be really important for both solar on-site and off-site, and then wind off-site, to enable to be competitive and not stuck with the vagaries of the connecting into the NEM, that you actually have control of your own destiny, which is one of the reasons that the development pathway for HyNQ is so fast. We're not depending on other people developing projects or connecting. We'll be doing all that ourselves. We will have storage through both the pipeline network on site and then storage facilities in order for us to get over. There's no point pretending that the wind and sun are there all day 24/7. That is one of the challenges for moving to a renewable energy based system globally. It means you've got to put in place sufficient storage. So we will have storage of green hydrogen and ammonia, as well as looking at what is the best ways to store electricity so that you can maximize the capacitive throughput through the electrolyzers. Here's a timeline. We've been working hard for several years now on this project. So moving to what we've been doing so far in 22. Our first soda is on one of the landowners for the wind. We are working with various technology providers in terms of the electrolyzer, and then the ammonia production. So we're really looking at an integrated chain from the solar and wind through transmission into the electrolyzers, and trying to be as efficient as possible. One of the other projects my team is working on at the moment is down in Port Pirie, where we are advising Trafigura on their very large green ammonia project inside the lead smelter. Which is going to be one of the fastest projects globally, because you've got Trafigura, who are one of the largest marine bunker fuel players in the world. They own Nearstar, who own the lead smelter, and you've got lots of opportunities for sale of byproducts. That means we're also able to assess a range of different technologies. So we've commenced the pre-feed, and as I mentioned, we will be selecting our partners, and that will be going public very shortly. And then going forward, we'll be commencing the EIS and lodging the IIS, which is almost complete with Department of State Development. We will have a grid connection, but that's for us as a load. We wouldn't be injecting into the grid, but we will be effectively an ability to help other people develop in the region, because we will augment our wind and solar with drawing from other renewables injected into the grid. We're looking to get a final investment decision as quickly as possible in 23, with effectively then operational by 2026. So we're going fast. That is the joy of being somewhere like Abbot Point, where if you can run your own race. You are not against 6 to 8 other people all trying to do the same thing as you. and that's what we see as one of the clear attractions for us of focusing on the HyNQ project, as well as the other things that we do as Energy Estate. And you've just heard from Vincent around CQP and how that can support the broader Central Queensland opportunities. Here's a look at some of the infrastructure. So you've got a desalination plant out to the north of the existing jetty. We're looking at a floating jetty loadout facility that was proposed to be on to the east or the south of the existing jetty, and that's consistent with the existing plans for the port. The electrolyzers will be back away from being portside, so back towards the end of the state development area, which would also have a liquid hydrogen plant for supplying into domestic use. We're not proposing to export liquid hydrogen, we're proposing to export ammonia. We will have the pipeline with the ammonia plant then sitting down on a piece of land in the state development zone. This is going to be part of a precinct, and we're not saying that we'll be developing all of the precinct. We believe that the future for sites like this is there will be trains of green ammonia and other products which will be going to our key export partners as they over time move from their existing Queensland exports to the new Queensland exports. So I think the way to think of this and HyNQ and the other projects that are all across the coast is that what you're going to be doing is exporting sunshine gas. We were very excited with the little announcement around the green hydrogen from Kogan Creek going through from CS Energy, going through Sojitz, the large Japanese trading company, and ending up in Palau and helping Palau for effectively move from what's very much a diesel-based power and energy system to a greener system. Somewhere like Palau doesn't have much land at all, great diving, and that's the opportunity for Queensland to become a trusted supplier where everyone goes home safe at night, everyone's paid properly, that is, I think, the energy suppliers of the future. And I know I sound a little bit like an ambulance chaser now with what's going on, but that's why we're doing things in Queensland. We think there's an incredible export opportunity, as well as supporting your existing manufacturers and companies like Rio and the other industries in Townsville. This is what the ammonia loading would look like. So you'll have that ammonia jetty sitting out there, and then you'll effectively have the ships will load from there. That reduces the amount of infrastructure that's needed, and this sort of single buoy mooring is very common around the world, and we see that this is one of the options for effectively a jettyless solution. So, in terms of opportunities, you've heard from Vincent with these lists around wind and solar. So HyNQ will incorporate a large-scale wind farms. So the first phase being around 800 megawatts to a gigawatt. Then large-scale solar farms with all of the same people who are required, and so that, again, our intention is to be prioritising local and ensuring that that's built into the procurement strategy is to maximise as much local procurement as we can. This is a page which highlights, when you then get onto the hydrogen production and export, what are the jobs and skills that are needed. It was a very good report done last year by Deloitte for the government, which really looked at how do you retrain and what are the right skills that are needed for the transition. So very useful report. If anyone's interested, we're happy to send it through, or we can put it through in the show notes. It goes into a pretty deep dive around the training. It builds off the work that Lance McCallum, who's the Deputy Minister for Hydrogen, did when he was in charge of the Just Transition Unit, and Energy Skills Queensland and CQU have also been doing a lot of work around, so what are the skills that are needed? And we're great believers that this is not about starting from scratch, that so many of the skills that exist, whether they are from the gas sector, and that I think we are dealing with gas here, so a lot of the work that's been done with the conventional gas and then the unconventional CSG. There's a direct read across for the hydrogen plants and the pipelines and green ammonia. You already have the ammonia nitrate plants. You have at Moranbah, and you've got at Gladstone with Orica and the Instec pivot plants, Instec pivot also out in Mount Isa. This isn't a situation where people should sit there going, we don't have the skills in Queensland or Australia to do this. We have all the skills. We have to then make sure that if there are additional qualifications and certs that are needed, that those are obtained. And that will be one of the things that we'll be working with our partners to ensure that everyone realises what are the skills that are required, which are very different than wind and solar. This will be much more around process engineering. There will also be a lot more activities at the front end, and much more like a resources or a refining project than you have with wind or solar, where there is traditionally relatively light engineering work done pre-final investment decision. That won't be the case with HyNQ. So there'll be a lot more activity on the ground and in the design and procurement phase during the next 2 years than you've seen with the upstream renewables, as it's now called, versus the midstream and downstream for green hydrogen projects. This page from the same report is very useful in terms of effectively the changing tasks, in terms of what things are going to be changing. There's in the bottom right hand corner, there's job growth, but there's no real particular change. On the top right, we're talking about that, for things like drilling and mining and firing shots, over time, and I think it's worth emphasising it is over time, you'll be doing less of that. I'm not quite sure about forestry. I have a different view, which I think forestry and Australia will become one of the key exporters of sustainable building materials. And I think the forests are going to become more valuable, and we're going to end up with a different approach to forestry. The lot of growth in engineering. These projects are heavy on engineering. They're heavy on process engineering and project management. I think that's one thing which isn't really in here. I think there's going to be a lot more project management activities that are needed to manage and integrate projects like this. I do like the focus on remote sensing. That's whether you get in the wind farm and the solar farm. These are integrated chains where you need to understand the weather that's coming and the weather you're currently in order to produce reliably for your customers. So a lot more focus on working with people like BOM, but really having the skills and the teams to interrogate whatever AI you're using and design that. There will also be a lot around cybersecurity. This project will be classed as critical infrastructure, and the new rules that are coming out of the federal government around critical infrastructure really mean that there'll be a lot more on the IT side of this. So that was what I was going to cover. Where I said in terms of going back to timetable, we really already started the procurement process, working for early contractor engagement at the moment, and the development activities on the ground will continue to ramp up through the back end of 22 and really ramping up even further during 23. And for us, the idea of developing a project where it's in Bowen and we have the Whitsundays on our doorstep, hopefully that's an attractive destination for people to come and work on projects which will be right at the forefront of what's going on globally, and will help cement Queensland's place as one of the sunshine gas producers for the world. So I think that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to take questions now at this time.
Thank you, Simon. And look, I find the Wet Sunday very attractive. I'd like to come. I do have some questions from the delegation. The report that you've been sharing towards the end of the presentation, is that accessible? Is that publicly available?
Yes, it is. And I'll find a link and send it through so it can be circulated in the notes as well.
Very much appreciate that. And I've had a query. Is this project working in with the NQH2 cluster?
Yes. So as Energy Estate, we're working with all of the different clusters across the country, and I only showed a couple of the projects we're doing with our partners. And one of the key things to note about us is it's all around partnerships. We have the partnership with RES around CQP. We'll be announcing our partners for HyNQ in the next few weeks. And we're trying to, we're not perfect. We're neither a charity nor perfect. We try and encourage everyone to work together. We think that's the best outcomes. One of the challenges for Queensland now is that we don't replicate what happened with CSG and what happened in the Pilbara with the 4 railways. And I think this needs to come from everyone needs to be saying, we need to collaborate to be competitive, to give enduring jobs, to avoid the sugar hit. It's about staging this out over time, being very, very true to our vision around how do we leave the land. There are some bits, as we know, as you go around central Queensland, you go, what is that artificial grass strip? And you realise it's just effectively pretty poor development activity around a pipeline. And we think that's really, really important. And so that's why working with all the hydrogen clusters, our vision is we need some very clear development principles, and we all subscribe to them as an industry, whether it's wind not going into rainforests when there's alternatives, solar not going onto highly valuable horticulture land or where there's better use of it. And that's why we think these clusters and working together across the country are so important to embed those development principles. We are the champions of local content. Simon Corbell, who's our senior advisor, is one of the only people who have successfully delivered local supply chains in Australia. But if we're honest with ourselves, we haven't done a very good job yet. We've failed. And it's only now, thanks to Twiggy, who's actually giving the whole nation the confidence that we can do this. And that's where we come from. We can have manufacturing like we've got of truck assembly in Townsville. We can do what we've done with Rio with the aluminium. And I know I sound rather quaint and over passionate on this, but we're never going to have this opportunity again. It's been gifted to us, but that's why the collaboration between the clusters is so important.
I 100% agree. I agree with you, and I love your thought process. And we're getting so many thumbs up likes coming across the screen. I'm pretty sure that you're resonating with the delegation, and you're going to be very busy in your booth. And I will, Simon, invite you to join your booth right now. If you'd like to engage with Simon and ask some more questions about HyNQ Clean Energy Project or Energy Estate and everything that Simon's been talking about today in his wonderful presentation, please go to the booth, the HyNQ Energy booth. Take a seat or queue to take a seat. But right now I'll be taking you through to our next presentation from Fortescue Future Industries.